On a quiet morning in March 2018, a car was discovered at the bottom of a cliff in Mendocino County, California. The wreckage, along with scattered belongings, indicated a tragic accident. However, as investigators delved deeper, they uncovered a much darker story. What led this family to such a devastating end, and why had the warning signs gone unnoticed until it was too late? Jennifer Jean Hart, known as Jen, was born on June 4, 1979, in South Dakota, USA. Her mother's name remains private, but her father, Douglas, worked with the Federal Energy Administration. As the eldest of 3 children, Jen grew up in Huron, a small town in eastern South Dakota, where she embraced sports and the beauty of nature. Breaking away from traditional expectations, she chose to play baseball with the boys rather than softball. Alongside her siblings, Jen developed a love for animals and musical talents, often playing the trumpet at Christmas church services. Despite a seemingly happy family life, her parents divorced when she was 12. While her mother took care of the children, Douglas remained in contact, eventually leading Jen to move in with him at 14. This arrangement lasted until Jen's challenging behavior prompted her father to send her back to her mother. Despite her rebellious phase, Jen graduated high school in 1997 and surprised everyone by enrolling at Augustana University, a conservative Lutheran institution. To the astonishment of her community, she chose to be baptized into the Lutheran Church, despite not being raised in that faith. 2 years later, Jen transferred to Northern State University, where she met Sarah Margaret, who was born on April 8, 1979, in North Dakota. The two women formed an immediate bond and began living together on campus while pursuing their education. Sarah focused on special education, while Jen seemed to be moving past her earlier issues. However, in January 2000, Jen was caught shoplifting, admitting to police that she wasn't sure why she did it. Ultimately, she pleaded guilty to petty theft, continued her studies, but eventually dropped out, distancing herself from her family, including her father. In 2005, Sarah legally adopted Jen's last name, becoming Sarah Hart. They opened their home as foster parents, starting with their first foster child, a 15-year-old girl who later shared her intention to stay until 18 but left when Jen and Sarah pursued adoption. In 2006, they adopted 3 children, Marcus, 8, Hannah, 4, and Abigail, 2, before expanding their family in 2008 with 3 more siblings, Devontae, 5, Jeremiah, 4, and Sierra, 2, all of whom were of African American descent. Jen embraced the role of stay-at-home mom, sharing their lives on social media. She posted everyday moments, culturally enriching activities, and highlighted the children's achievements. Her online presence portrayed a picture-perfect family, often featuring matching outfits and smiles. However, behind the scenes, the reality was far more complex than the idyllic image portrayed online. In 2008, while living in Minnesota, a police report emerged involving one of the couple's daughters, who told officers that her mother, Sarah, had struck her with a belt. However, when questioned, both mothers claimed the girl had fallen down the stairs, leading to the incident being dismissed. The following year, in 2009, Sarah and Jen traveled to Connecticut to get married, as it was one of the few states where same-sex marriage was legal at the time. They shared every detail of their ceremony on social media, presenting a picture-perfect life. Yet, behind the scenes, their family dynamic was far from ideal. On November 15, 2010, Abigail, then 6 years old, confided in her teacher about having bruises on her stomach and back, stating that one of her mothers had hit her. The teacher observed the visible bruises and reported that Abigail had mentioned other concerning incidents, including being denied food and having her head dunked in cold water as punishment for allegedly stealing a penny. When authorities questioned the mothers, Sarah admitted to hitting Abigail in a fit of anger, while Jen acknowledged being aware of Sarah's violent behavior. Following this confession, authorities conducted a home inspection and interviewed the children, all of whom confirmed experiences of physical punishment and food deprivation. Sarah ultimately pleaded guilty to domestic assault and was sentenced to 90 days in jail. However, she did not serve the time, as she was granted a year of community service. Despite this legal outcome, the children remained in the couple's custody. After the legal case concluded, Jen and Sarah chose to withdraw their 6 children from the Minnesota public school system, opting to homeschool them instead. This decision was kept private, contrasting Jen's usual openness on social media. She later explained her belief that public schools were unsafe for her children, citing discrimination related to their race and her family's sexual orientation. She claimed that Devontae, in particular, had faced physical attacks and insults at school. Despite expressing concerns about public education, Jen did not mention the shift to homeschooling on her profiles. Instead, she shared a photo of the 6 children in a forest clearing, captioned "Science Class in the Woods." During this time, the family faced additional challenges. Court documents indicated that Jen and Sarah made over 30 calls to the police regarding instances of discrimination and hostility related to their sexual orientation. A neighbor they accused later admitted to inappropriate behavior. In 2011, Jen continued to share glimpses of her life online, posting about attending music festivals and her excitement about forming a community of friends, even hosting a party for Devontae. She frequently highlighted him in her posts, emphasizing how special he was to their family. In their new household, the facade of a strong family began to show cracks when Sarah had to relocate to Portland, Oregon, for work. Jen stayed behind with the children for 6 months until their house was sold, and they could join her in Portland. Shortly after their arrival in April 2013, a local photographer captured a joyful moment of Devontae dancing, which Jen proudly shared online. During this time, Jen made a friend at a charity concert who described her as kind, sensitive, and compassionate. However, the friend also noticed that Jen interacted mostly with Devontae and Jeremiah, while the other children appeared more distant, often lost in their books. She observed Abigail as outgoing, Marcus as shy, and Sierra as full of laughter. Jen confided in her new friend about the challenges of raising the children, stating that they had been removed from school because they faced harsher punishments than their peers. She claimed that her children's birth mother's drug use had caused addiction issues, leading to overeating as the kids struggled to manage their behavior. Jen expressed her belief that the children might never live independently, work, marry, or have children of their own due to their difficult early lives. Despite Jen's alarming remarks, no legal documents were found to substantiate her claims about the children's conditions. From the outside, the family seemed loving, but concerns about the children's well-being began to surface. On July 19, 2013, the police filed a report concerning the children's welfare, which was referred to Oregon's Department of Human Services. Details of the report emerged when a neighbor came forward, alleging that the couple was abusing their children by withholding food and that their treatment was emotionally abusive, controlling, and cruel. Investigators found additional testimonies from neighbors who reported strict and unusual household rules. The children were required to raise their hands before speaking, were not allowed to celebrate birthdays, and were forbidden from laughing at the dinner table. It became evident that the children lived in fear of their adoptive mothers. Despite these serious allegations, when authorities interviewed the children, they all insisted they were treated well. It appeared they had been coached on what to say, and without concrete evidence, legal action could not be taken. When questioned, Jen argued that the accusations against her were rooted in prejudice, claiming that some people were intolerant of a white lesbian couple raising 6 African American children. Ultimately, Oregon's Department of Human Services concluded that there was insufficient evidence to proceed with any action. Around the same time, a significant event brought one of the children into the international spotlight, separate from the family's ongoing issues. In November 2014, a large protest took place in Oregon following the death of Michael Brown, an unarmed African-American teenager killed by police. A grand jury's decision not to indict the officer involved sparked nationwide protests. During one of these protests in Oregon, Devontae was photographed with tears streaming down his face as he embraced a white police officer. This heartfelt image quickly went viral, becoming a symbol of social activism. Not long after this, Jen and Sarah decided to relocate their family to Washington, citing feelings of insecurity in Oregon due to racial threats and strange noises outside their home. They claimed to have contacted the police several times regarding these incidents, but police records showed no such calls. Instead, there were multiple reports from neighbors in Washington who were concerned about the children's welfare. In November 2017, the first of many alerts was raised when 12-year-old Hannah was seen crawling out of a window in the middle of the night and fleeing to a neighbor's house. When Sarah and Jen arrived to retrieve her, Hannah begged the neighbor not to let her go, claiming she was being mistreated. Unfortunately, the neighbor returned her to her mother's. The following day, Jen attempted to smooth things over with the neighbors, asserting that Hannah was lying and attributing her erratic behavior to her biological parents, whom she described as having mental health and addiction issues. This incident was not the last to attract attention. In March 2018, Washington's Department of Social and Health Services began investigating the family after receiving reports of potential neglect and abuse. Complaints came from concerned neighbors who had clear evidence that the children were not being adequately fed. They revealed that Devontae frequently visited their house asking for food, sometimes several times a day, and confided in them that his mothers were withholding meals as punishment. The couple also noted that the children appeared thin and small, raising alarms about their health. Adding to the troubling situation, another daughter, covered in bruises, showed up at the neighbor's door late one night after trying to escape through thorny bushes. She pleaded for help, stating her mothers were mistreating her and begging not to be returned. However, the gravity of the situation was not fully recognized when the couple saw Jen and Sarah searching for the girl with flashlights, leading to her return to her mother's. Reports indicate that Washington's Child Protective Services claimed they had no previous records of concerns about the family. Despite earlier allegations elsewhere in the U.S. Sadly, the system failed the children multiple times. By the time authorities finally resolved bureaucratic issues and attempted to contact Jen and Sarah, it was too late. The family had already left, taking the children with them. What followed was a reconstruction of events based on authorities' findings in the days leading up to the tragedy. Social services attempted to reach Jen and Sarah on 3 separate occasions without success. It was later revealed that on March 24, 2018, Jen, Sarah, and their 6 children left Oregon and began traveling south on the highway, eventually reaching North Carolina. The following morning, Jen was seen at a grocery store purchasing food, and the family stayed in the area until later that night when they continued their journey. Tragedy struck on March 26, 2018, when the family's SUV was discovered at the bottom of a cliff in Mendocino County, California. According to investigators, Jen had stopped the vehicle at a pullout before accelerating off the cliff. Both Jen and Sarah were found dead inside the vehicle, while 3 of their children, Abigail, Jeremiah, and Marcus, were discovered lifeless outside the SUV. 2 weeks later, Sierra's body was found on a nearby beach, and in May, part of a foot inside a shoe was recovered on another beach, later confirmed through DNA testing to belong to Hannah. Devontae's body was never recovered, but authorities concluded he had also perished, and a judge issued his death certificate on April 3, 2019. Following this horrific incident, a thorough investigation was conducted, leading to public outrage and accusations of negligence. Investigators discovered troubling internet searches conducted by Sarah during their road trip, including how to induce drowsiness with over-the-counter medications and inquiries about how long it takes to die from hypothermia in a car. One of her final searches was about finding a shelter for their dogs, which was particularly shocking given they had left the dogs at home, showing compassion they did not extend to their children. After the deaths of their 6 children, authorities searched the family's last residence. The home appeared clean and well-maintained, but the children's rooms were bare. Investigators noted that the family's luggage remained in the house, and none had packed essentials like toothbrushes before leaving. This evidence pointed to a premeditated act, leading one officer to conclude that Jen and Sarah, feeling cornered by the accusations, made a conscious decision to end their lives and tragically take their children with them. Psychological evaluations suggested the couple believed that if they couldn't keep the children, no one else should. Toxicology reports revealed that Jen, who was driving, had consumed the equivalent of 5 beers, enough to impair her abilities. Witnesses later stated that Jen rarely drank, fueling speculation that she may have consumed alcohol to muster the courage for their grim plan. Additionally, traces of a sedative were found in the systems of Sarah and 2 of the children. This case shocked society, particularly those who had followed the family's seemingly happy life on social media for nearly a decade. Jen shared images of the children posing with delicious meals, highlighting a stark contrast to allegations that the children were regularly deprived of food. The disconnect between their social media persona and the reality behind closed doors added a haunting layer to the story. Ultimately, while Jen and Sarah can no longer be questioned or held accountable for what happened at that cliff in California, the investigation was officially closed, ruling their deaths as suicides and the deaths of their 6 children as homicides. This tragic case has sparked intense criticism of the systems meant to protect children. Authorities in 5 states had been involved with the children's adoptions and the abuse allegations, yet none managed to prevent this tragic ending. The situation has ignited widespread debate about the need for better federal oversight of child abuse cases. Thank you for joining us on Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we explore gripping true crime stories from Latin America. Don't miss out, subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.